Hello and welcome. From Khosla Ka Ghosla to Shanghai, Dibakar Banerjee is just 4 films old. Yet, bit by bit, each of these films have contributed to his formidable reputation as one of the most distinct and relevant filmmakers of our times. Shanghai, his latest film, has got unanimously good reviews and it has even recovered its money. But it hasn't got people propelling it to greater heights. To talk about the destiny of his film and to talk about his growth as a filmmaker, please welcome on the show, Dibakar Banerjee. Dibakar, it's good to have you on this show.
Thank you.
And this is one of the rare films where you have unanimous critical acclaim, isn't it? Like
and I'm still alive.
95% of the critics have liked the film. Now the question is, does critical acclaim translate into commercial success? Do people walk in droves to see the film?
Depends on who reads and which periodicals or which magazines are those critics speaking in, and what's your target audience. Fortunately, and I feel almost criminally I feel really criminally guilty saying this. My target audience is not really a secret. It's mainly the urban audience.
Yeah.
And the urban critics. And in this case, very strangely, the English speaking, the what we call the posh media critics and vernacular critics have universally lapped the film up, and that being the core target audience for films like mine, it really helped. It really helped because on Friday the film kind of opened slow, as you would expect for a film like this. The moment the reviews appeared and the stars appeared, or however you call it, Saturday collections went up by 35-40% and Sunday 35-40% further.
Do you think you're getting good word of mouth in the film?
I think so.
You think you're getting good word of mouth? Because there I'm not so sure, because I've met some people or many people who felt, okay, predictable story, we knew it, not really a thriller, disorienting, different reactions from different people, different demographics. So word of mouth, has it been good for you, you
Exactly the same as LSD and Oi Lucky.
Yeah,
exactly the same.
So you're used to it?
Because LSD, when people went in, I remember having almost the same conversation, that people went in expecting an Oi Lucky and they came out, those who went in expecting something else, something that they had seen, came out slightly disoriented. And those who went in probably without any expectations came out quite rewarded. Same thing with Oi Lucky. I mean, now Oi Lucky and Khosla are clubbed together.
Yeah.
But when Oi Lucky was released, it was a big shock to the Khosla Ka Ghosla camp, because they didn't expect that a film like Oi Lucky would come. So this I'm used to. This I'm used to. The thing is that I don't know, maybe it depends on the mouths that are speaking to me, but the mouths that are speaking to me are saying that I probably have taken the next step.
Let's address one thing. A lot of people are calling this a political film. I saw it just before we doing this show, and I don't think it's a political film, because while you while the setting is a political story, you aren't taking a stand really, are you, on the kind of development that you are using as a backdrop for your storytelling? What does Dibakar feel about SEZs, or about the kind of development where the government believes a certain kind of progress, but it may not be what everybody understands?
I disagree with you there. I mean,
it's a political film?
It's a very political film, because the reason why I made this film was that most political films are about politicians in a family drama. And the story itself, or what the politicians do, has got nothing to do with the politics. It's got to do with how to survive, how to do this, how to do that. I think Shanghai is about political beliefs. I think it has got some extremely committed people who really believe what they believe as a mode of life. The Chief Minister believes in a certain brand of development. Farooq Sheikh's character deeply believes in the Chief Minister. The last two lines are not about Farooq Sheikh or Kaul's character acting smart, as he does throughout the film. That is where you really see where his heart lies. He says that, why are you doing this to this Chief Minister?
Yeah, she has a vision.
She has a vision. She could be the Prime Minister tomorrow and we could be like China. Why are you doing this? I think it's a deeply political film. and I don't think that a film which has politics in it needs me to have a stance.
When I saw the film, I didn't see you debate both sides and then give me your side and therefore a political statement. I saw the film actually as a story with a political backdrop.
It always has to be like that.
And
otherwise it will become a polemical exercise.
Yeah, that's what. So there is no polemics, and in that sense it's not a political
I
film.
don't think any polemical exercise will actually succeed as a film. Because then it becomes a propaganda film. I'm not really interested in a propaganda film. I mean, what do you propagate for? I mean, what will you stand up for? Will you stand up for the fact that everybody has equal rights? So what's new? Why do you need to stand up for something very obvious at this stage? You would rather make something which shows the glaring errors that our dogmas lead into and the human impact of those errors. But at the same time, those errors are caused by a certain political belief or a distortion of the political belief.
Because for me, actually, the movie ended up being about personal courage. You know, it is about being able to stand up for the courage of your convictions. And what I find interesting, and what I like is, which is something that you overtly addressed in your film, is that there is no hero, and even the heroes are questioned, isn't it? You question the need that we have to have heroes. We can get things done by each one of us just standing up for the courage of our convictions, and that adding up therefore to change in a particular way. Am I right in interpreting it like that?
Absolutely. Most probably, I mean, looks like you got as much of the film as I would like anyone to get.
But having said that, I wonder if a political film needs to be a little clearer about the politics.
In a story like Shanghai, as you say, that ends up in political courage. Personal courage. Now that's a Freudian slip. What is that personal courage about? The personal courage is to take a particular stand which directly stands for or against the reigning political stance. Correct?
So you're saying, so you're saying that as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, you have strong political convictions, and yet you don't see this story or the film it doesn't need to be a vehicle where if I come in to see it, I don't go away with a view on whether to go this way of development or that way of development, and Dibakar's politics versus prevailing accepted status quo.
Yes, if you walk away with an answer which says that the choice is always personal, that it's the personal choice that contributes to making a social choice, and if the personal choice is driven by a certain kind of drivers, then the society will become a certain kind. And if the personal choice is driven by a certain other kind of drivers, it'll always be a different kind.
And what that choice needs to be is something you need to study on. So at the end of the day, whether Dibakar believes that we need high rises and special economic zones and growth and China.
We do.
You do.
Yes.
So, okay. So you're saying study it and then come to a choice.
Yes, absolutely. And then the choice comes to this. The choice comes to this is that as a human being, right now, if there was a small mouse running this way down, and I were to tell you, squash it, kill it right now, because it helped the political sort of establishment of the country. Whether you do it or whether you don't defines who you are. And if 1 million more people like you decide like you decide, that defines what the society is.
Let's go back to your first film, Khosla Ka Ghosla. Land, middle class angst with land builder. Okay, here
where middle class is the victim.
Where middle class is the victim, Here, land, state co-opting, private sector, builder, company, conglomerate, whatever you want to call it. And yet, the victim has gone from the middle class to the huge mass of the lower middle class, okay, for lack of a better way of putting it. I find that interesting because Khosla Ka Ghosla was more your context, your milieu, what you really understand. And I remember you saying somewhere that it was almost like revenge for all the humiliation that a good person suffers in middle class, salaried, good person suffers. And yet here you have managed to straddle classes, go beyond your class. Was that a difficult journey?
No, not if you take the last 7 years. Last 7 years I've been living in this area,
Which is central Mumbai.
which is central Mumbai.
What used to be mill land and is today mall land, isn't it?
Not only that, my house has got a chimney from that old mill, which has become a cool hangout place. So the old detritus of the factory has been painted over, and now it's become a cool hangout place for us to live in, which is all fine, which is good. That's how you sort of take a city forward. But when I come out of my gate and when I see the absolute confusion because my car's stuck and there are 5 guys standing right in the middle of the road and talking, and I asked my security guy, I said, why do people stand right in the middle of the road and talk in this area? So the guard who used to live here earlier in my house earlier, he told me, साहब यहाँ पे चाय की दुकान थी पहले, आदत पड़ गई.
It's the mohalla. You know, that mohalla has got replaced by a new reality in which they don't have a new place to fit in, isn't it? A new place
to fit in, and it confuses the hell out of everybody. And it creates a very interesting dynamic, and that's just an example.
It's not yet a confrontation and a clash, but there is a dissonance, right? There is one India and there is another India. You firmly belong to the better of India, right? We do.
Yes.
And yet your story is now about the not better of India, isn't it? Because
both.
it impacts us,
Both.
because it impacts the better of India.
I would say both.
You know, if I were to look for an author parallel for the Shanghai kind of sensibility, I would pick Arvind Adiga.
Okay.
You know, I'm not saying it's the same work, I'm just saying the sensibility and concern expressed in his books is what I've seen in Shanghai.
I would say it expresses both. I would say Shanghai is not a film that stands up for the rights of the downtrodden masses. It cannot be, because the maker and his understanding does not come from the downtrodden masses. The maker is a pretty comfortable, cushy, middle class guy actually. Therefore, when you see Shanghai, you have to see it from the point of view of Jaggu Bhaggu, the two people, Jogi,
who's hoping to get an English class,
English class, you have to see it from their point of view, as well as you have to see it from Jogi, Imran's character, his point of view, because he's right in the middle. Okay, he has risen up from there and he's trying to get where Krishnan is trying to get, and you have to see it from Krishnan's point of view, because Krishnan is the guy who is an alien in his own country. Not only does he speak the lingo very well, he doesn't understand. If you see, he's mostly behind glass. He's mostly in his car with the AC sort of turned down and the windows up, and suddenly a mob presses down on him, and then you realize just how much out of his own turf he is. And that's what I'm talking about. It's from all these 3 points of views. It's almost like you take the cross section of Indian society and see what are the embedded knots and warts there.
I remember you telling me that most films tend to give people a return gift, and that is this toy called hope. I'm literally quoting you. I'm sure this sounds familiar. You have resisted doing that. You don't do it in Shanghai either, isn't it? Does that necessarily limit your audience? That and your craft, that is what you use to tell your story. Not the story, but the technique of storytelling.
Yes, it does.
And you can live with that?
Yeah, as long as I'm cheap and affordable, anything is possible. I mean, that's how LSD sort of, kind of worked and was financially successful. That's how Shanghai is working for the second week. And it has to be that way. The moment you have, in a society like India, where life is not very easy, and it genuinely takes a hell of a lot to sort of, go through 5 days in a week. And then on the last 2 days, if there's something else that will again take the mickey out of you mentally, there are not going to be as many takers for it as there can be. But frankly, I'm surprised that there are at least as many takers for it. There are enough takers for it to make it survive and to make on another and another.
Right. You have said, and I must quote you because it will help me with my question, is that you reject sentimentality over emotion, right? Prettiness over true beauty, melodrama over intensity. And yet this is a little more of a head approach than a heart approach. And for many, or for a vast majority of people watching movies, the heart approach might get through better. Are you tempted sometimes to change your style just a little bit, make a few allowances here and there for your point of view to go across? Not to make more money,
No, no, I understand. I understand. The moment, it's like I'm trying to tell you something, and then I start manipulating you, and then I start telling you something that you might like to end up into something that you might not like. At the end of it, you will walk out cheated.
So you're never going to be manipulative.
Not really, not really.
Well, I've noticed that you don't manipulate.
I would rather try and go for a feeling that I can invoke in you while being myself. So there are two things that can happen. While being myself, either I touch you, I get through to you, or I don't. That's what life is about. You meet 500 people, you affect 50 people, and you don't affect 450 people. But an effective politician, his job is to meet those 500 people and get through and affect those 500 people, but it doesn't matter what he is affecting them with.
Yeah.
I would rather be a guy who gets through to 40 people, 50 people, and get through with what I really have to say than to 450. Yeah. Now coming to the very important question, and I'm glad that you asked this, the craft. There is a way to tell in which you can be yourself and still speak to a larger people. But Shanghai is not a film for the great Indian masses in that way. Shanghai is, in my opinion, a wake-up call for myself. And who am I? The urban mall-going class, who have completely shut ourselves from everything that is immediately not gratifying for us.
True.
And the guy on the road, the cab driver, or the guy whose home is being displaced, he anyways will never come to a film called Shanghai. They will all watch Rowdy Rathore, as they should, and they will get their answer there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because every Rowdy Rathore and every Dabang gives them the answer of what to make of their lives.
Yeah.
It tells them that your lives don't mean anything to a lot of people who manipulate you, and the only way to get back is to rebel. Correct?
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Now, when we come back to a film like Shanghai, Shanghai is not a call for rebellion or anything. Shanghai is a wake-up call for us, the people who control 80% of the nation's resources, the people whose opinions, the people whose lobby groups, the people whose employers consolidate and constitute most of India's policy making. And it's a film for us.
I have one final question for you, and that is, as a filmmaker, there are all these, 4 films, just 4 films old, and yet a very, very distinct voice. And I think you know that that's been acknowledged. Even if it's not appreciated, it's definitely acknowledged. How do you see your growth as a filmmaker over these 4 films at the end of Shanghai? Besides being lucky that every film you manage to do and say the stories that you want to say.
Yeah.
If you were to...
I have no idea. I really have no idea how I have grown. I have only an idea on how I have blundered. I have only an idea about how I've got through by the skin of my teeth. And if you were to force me to tell me, then probably the distance between this and this has reduced from Khosla. Usually the distance between the film running in the director's head and what's running on screen defines how good a professional he is. I have no way to rate a good film or a bad film, because there are so many things that operate in it that you cannot ever judge what is a good film or a bad film. I have only a way of rating a well-made film and a badly made film, I think the ratio of well-made moments in my films is increasing. That is all I can say. Where the correct music and the correct picture and the correct sound, or the correct lack of sound or music or whatever,
is telling the story you want to tell.
There are more moments of it.
Yeah.
Telling the story, yes, of course,
Yeah.
of course. But if I can only look at film as a craft. I really can't look at it as some great big philosophical thing, It's a craft. You do it.
Yeah.
There is no other way. You can't think it. So the moments of well-made moments in my film
are increasing.
Probably increasing.
Dibakar Banerjee.
Well-executed moments.
Dibakar Banerjee, that's the best way to describe your own work, and I think I couldn't expect more or less from someone who is one of the most unmanipulative filmmakers we make. So thank you, and
Thank you.
looking forward to the next as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.